All right, welcome to the show. So I have Ashley and Spencer. So they are vacation rental specialists and luxury travel specialists, and they're also quit their 9 to 5 at 33 and 29. Is that right?
That's
And on
right.
social media. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. Who is your market? How do you serve? And how do you solve problems for investors?
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Sam. We're really excited to be on here and talking to you. Little intro about us. We started our real estate career. Spencer actually kind of started in 2018 while doing a BRRRR to a vacation rental. And it did so well that we ended up duplicating that same system twice over on the same street, basically. And then from there, we saw how great the returns were. It was better than anything that our friends doing student rentals were getting or flips. So we were just kind of going down that route. And then in 2019, we thought, hey, we're doing so well managing these properties that we own, we can probably do it for other people. And that's where Travelux Inc. was formed with two other partners.
And then, yeah, going back even farther, the reason why we wanted to do something in this space was you mentioned it, we love to travel so much. And we were both working corporate jobs at the time. And I only had 3 weeks. Ashley could buy an extra week and had four, which I was super jealous of at the time. But every time we went away on a trip, we did our first big one, I think like 6-ish years ago, to Southeast Asia.
Wow.
And absolutely loved it. But it was only 2.5 weeks, not enough time. Like I wanted to spend like significant amount of time, like a month plus. So basically right then and there, we said we need to do something where we can earn money while being anywhere in the world. And, the short-term rental space kind of presented itself. Everything's done online. You can have these systems set up in the background where, ideally you can run this business from anywhere in the world. So that's where the desire started. And, we kind of hit the ground running, saw success, and just kept rolling with it.
That's incredible. So you repeated something that worked. You figured out, how can I scale this in a way? Short-term rentals worked for you, worked on another property. When did you notice, and how did that look as far as a better return over flips? Like when you saw, if you've done flips before or BRRRRs, what made short-term such a better investment? Because it seems like you're keeping these properties and now you're, getting great cash flow. So what about that as far as that? And then how did it allow you to do more traveling as well?
So yeah, the big one was the cash flow. That got us out of our job a lot faster. So we were seeing, average market rent in our area around, $2,000, $1,800 a month. But with the same property as a short-term rental, it could average $5,000 to $6,000 a month. So the cash flow was significantly stronger. And the reason why we like the BRRRR method is, well, when you're flipping to yourself, as you know, like you don't have to pay any capital gains on that money. And it was, at the time, a lot more scalable to apply to other properties. Obviously, we got to a point where we hit a roadblock and had to get creative with financing, of course, but we saw that as a very fast and scalable way to use leverage on our current property when the project was finished to duplicate the system. Like Ashley said, we bought two other houses literally in the same neighborhood, one on the same street, one on the adjacent street, because we knew that the previous one had that track record and it was doing really well, that we could repeat this success. And that's just kind of how it started and snowballed from there.
And we really like the idea of having someone else paying down our mortgage for us, which just builds up equity in the home. So that was really, instead of having to like flip it and sell it all the time, like that was really attractive to us.
Absolutely, because it seems also like you're pivoting, because you don't have to go into the student space. You're also not subject to landlord tenant rules
Yeah.
with the landlord long-term tenant board as well. So it seems like you're able to get better cash flows. How have you been able to help people with their portfolio or with their short-term rentals? Because it seems like it could be a good way to do it and also a not so good way to do it. Like there's other companies that might do it, but don't do it the same way. What do you guys do to really make sure that it's done the right way when it comes to short-term rentals, you think?
It's a great question. So I really think where you win is in the beginning of the purchase. A lot of the clients that we talk to, most of them are either in the middle of looking to purchase a property, or they might have a property that we think is good, but we do a lot of upfront research for them. We essentially do a full on, revenue projection for the property. And we'll be straight up with people if we don't think it's a good idea to go down that path, because once you decide you are going short-term rental, there's a lot more of upfront cost than just getting the place renovated. Now you're talking furniture, you're talking amenities, hot tub, saunas, patio furniture. You're talking a lot of extra money over and above what you would have to invest as a flip. So our number one thing is we want to make we want to be completely certain that this is going to be a profitable venture for them, and be like something that they're comfortable with as well, in regards to knowing that, hey, like, it's got to be in a space that the city allows as well. That's the regulations are a big one.
And then a big one that we're doing now is we just launched services today, OptiBnB, which is Airbnb optimization. It's something that we've been doing for all of our clients that Spencer's really spearheaded, to be honest, which is optimizing like listing descriptions, diving into what the photos look like, the photo descriptions, audits, custom pricing strategies, because way back in the day, you could basically just put any property on Airbnb and turn a profit, right? And it's really, really changed in the last couple of years, where we're seeing a lot of other hosts saying, hey, we're not seeing as many bookings, occupancy is down, bookings are down. And to be honest, we have seen the complete opposite, where our management clients are doing really well. We're doing really well. And I think now you have to put time and effort into your listings, and you can't just put your grandma's old couch in a bed and say, come stay at my place, you know?
We did that. We actually covered it with some cute thing, but it was this floor.
At least you covered it.
So you sort of do a pro forma with your clients when they're buying the property. You help them map out if this is going to be a good avenue to go through, if it's going to make sense for them on a short-term rental, the area allows it, and how to optimize the rents and the short-term rental market, right? Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, and optimizing Airbnb. Tell us a little bit about why that was born and how that really helps a lot of people right now too, you think?
So, I mean, it really stems from the overall competitive nature of the market. So many people have pivoted with the rising interest rates and the high cost of real estate, that they're looking to get into a space where they can bring in a higher cash flow to hold the properties and ideally still make a cash flow. So with the competitive nature of a lot more listings being on the market, you really have to make sure that your listing stands out. You have a split second to grab the attention of, potential customer, potential guest. So stemming all the way from, your top photo that's going to grab that attention, to getting people to physically click on your listing. And then once you have them there, holding the attention, and most importantly, raising that emotion for them to, feel that they literally are already staying at the place and have already envisioned their entire vacation or weekend there, through not only captivating photos, but good copywriting, good listing descriptions, inviting things where it's literally speaking to them and their group, and is like the perfect place for them to stay, to where, they want to stop looking. That's the place. They're getting all their friends and convincing them this is the place, and we want to book now so we don't lose out on these dates.
And they're willing to book at a premium.
Yeah. So that's really where the, these services came from, because I find there is a lot of missed opportunity on listings, professional photos being the absolute number one. Just having the overall marketing of the listing is extremely important.
Awesome. So it seems like there's a lot of optimization on the photos, a lot of common mistakes, ways that your listing can rank higher. And you said there's more competition now within that space. So if someone's getting started, like let's say someone's purchasing an investment property, do they contact you and say, okay, I need you to help me with the furniture. I need you to help me get this optimized and do the Airbnb? Because I remember when we did it, we kind of bootstrapped it. We just got a whole bunch of furniture, did the Walmart stuff, and then put it on Airbnb. We looked at the occupancy rate through AirDNA. We figured it out. We did okay, but what do you suggest when someone's getting started, an investor, they'd like to kind of pivot a little bit?
Yeah, so they usually, if they want us to manage their property for them, which is what our management company does, usually they reach out, they get our one of the co-founders, Kevin. He will send them the AirDNA report. He usually does a deeper dive than just AirDNA, because AirDNA doesn't always give like exact data. So we know how to kind of extrapolate the more correct data for them. If they wish to move forward, we have a really detailed supply list. So this is everything that they will need in terms of supplies at the property. We will give design recommendations, but if someone wants us to help them design, we actually just partner with local designers who specialize in short-term rentals and who understand what short-term rentals need to look like in order to do well, which includes themes, different amenities that you can click or check off for right on the Airbnb site, which automatically boosts or optimizes your listing, all that kind of stuff. And then they will help guide them. And we have an onboarding coordinator that actually helps them through this whole process, because obviously you've been through it. It's a lot, right? We require a certain amount of sheets and towels, and also certain things like shampoo, conditioner, salt, pepper. Like, it really adds up, but we have like a super detailed checklist.
Yeah, I was just to say, like, how were you able to scale that model? Because it's a very complex business, right? You have to get, you know, the cleaners coordinated. You have to figure out the communication with the client and Airbnb, managing as a host or a co-host and all that. What does that look like right now? And how were you able to actually scale that in a way to create these systems to allow your guests to have a great experience, or your clients to have a great experience, I think?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts with upfront communication on how daunting the setup process is going to be. So we do offer different services on like a case-by-case basis. If they're looking to have it completely hands-off, like, we do partner with certain people that can go out and source it. The majority of our clients will take on the supply list because it's fairly detailed and even provides links. So a lot of the times they can just go in and, you know, it says you got to order 12 of these or 14 of these. They can just click order it to cart and get it to the property and set it up themselves. So it's just really having that system in place of being extremely detailed so that they're not running back and forth to the property. They can do a mass order and have everything there. And it's literally just one giant order in 1 or 2 days of going to the property and setting everything up. Then our onboarding coordinator comes in and goes through the checklist to make sure that everything is there. It's put away in the supply closet, that all the numbers add up. And then obviously any last final touches that may or may not need to be added, or something that might be missing before we go live. Because go live is one of the most important things of launching a new property. So we want to make sure that, you know, everything is at the property and everything's featured when there's photos, and before we launch.
And that's really, really hard. Like, we get a lot of pushback from our clients because, as you know, it's really daunting to set up, and it takes a really long time. And a lot of times we're dealing with investors who are used to, say, renovating for long term, which basically means renovations are done, you're done. But that's just the start for an Airbnb, right? So a lot of times they'll say, oh, we don't have this, this, and this, but we'll just get it later. And we absolutely say, like, nope, it needs to be perfect for go live, because as Spencer was saying, it's so important because it tests you. So you want your first 3 bookings that get that 20% discount. They need to be 5 stars, or else Airbnb will say, we might not make a lot of money from this listing. Let's bury it.
Yeah. And that's going back to the importance of just having that open communication. Like, if the clients aren't willing to get all of those things, or they want to maybe wait 6 or 8 months until they get some money coming in, we're basically telling them, look, then we suggest you don't do short-term rentals, because you will not perform well. In 6 months from now, you're going to come to us saying, why aren't we getting bookings? Why isn't this going well? And likely have to exit that anyways, with all that money invested anyways. So it's just setting up front expectations. It is competitive now, but there's still a lot of opportunity for people that are willing to take that extra step, because there's a lot of people that still aren't doing that.
Right. And when you say it's competitive now, like with places like Hamilton, I believe, to my knowledge, they stopped, or they had some sort of ban on Airbnb or short term. How has that changed the landscape of other areas? Has it made more competition for this product, so people are more looking for Airbnb rentals?
Yeah. Any time that there's a bylaw that's implemented that essentially shuts down a lot of these short-term rentals, of course, is going to, you know, increase overall demand because there's not as much supply. But I wouldn't say there's like a huge correlation. I know a lot of municipalities are actually trying to make it work. Even Hamilton per se is still uncertain of the actual direction they're going to go. But here in the Niagara region, we're seeing a lot of the municipalities on board with it, with a licensing program and putting things in place to obviously just safeguard it. Because we understand that a lot of these are basically all in residential areas, and they need to respect the neighborhood and the neighbors, and to ensure that hey, there's no parties. And of course, unfortunately, the only thing that makes the news regarding Airbnbs are these one-off 1 in 10,000 parties, or really bad situations. Unfortunately, you don't get the other 9,999 amazing families that came down and were quiet, respectful, and enjoyed their stay. So it does have a bad rap, but I think with the municipalities putting these licensing programs in and having certain demerit point systems that you have to follow with noise, garbage, complaints, I think that is really just stepping up the people's expectations on how to manage their property and making sure that they're not just a party house thrown together and accepting everyone.
And we like operating in cities where there are bylaws, because it just gives you a framework to operate within. And we like operating our homes and our clients' homes really well. We like to form good relationships with neighbors. We always have things like exterior cameras, interior and exterior noise sensors that measure decibel levels, so it's easier to control. And we always say this to the neighbors, like, hey, we can control this. This isn't going to be, we're not going to allow what we think is a party just to earn $1, because that's not what we want, right? So bylaws are good. And a lot of times it kind of takes away some of the competition, because people don't want to be bothered to apply for the bylaw, and because some of the restrictions sound really restrictive. But there might just be stronger barriers to entry that you can actually work around.
So the bylaw is actually like a guardrail in a way. It's not really like banning Airbnb, because you would think that they don't just allow it at all. It's really, like you said, just a restriction or a licensing. So you said, Spencer, as well, like noise and garbage, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're charging municipal taxes on all your bookings now, so they're making good money.
Right, it's in their best interest, right? Because you're getting more profit, they're getting money. It's also income tax as well as an investor, more cash flow, more tax.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And you launched, so as well, I'd just like to, and I can edit anything out if I need to. So if I'm thinking about a question, there's a lot to go into. So just break down, you get a pro forma, you help the client potentially pick out a great area for short-term rental, analyze if it's going to make sense. You have an onboarding program that, and pretty much everything from start to finish. You source suppliers for furniture and everything. You get everything ready. You optimize the listing, and then you manage the listing. Is that what happens? Like, you manage it, you communicate with the client. How do you make the client's life easier? Because I remember when we had Airbnb, it was constant message. I needed this. I need this now. And it's like, my wife was so stressed out. She's like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I maybe heard her or other people's spouses to hear this too, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like it is a lot. And when you move to Airbnb, you're moving out of real estate and you're into hospitality, and hospitality doesn't sleep, right? So it's 24/7. You're working for that money. This isn't something you get into passively, right? So we actually have put a lot of systems in place where at one point back in the day, we were managing about 22 to 25 properties while still working our 9 to 5s.
And we were doing everything, the messaging, the scheduling of cleaners, dealing with the issues.
It was a lot.
The guests always would call right when you're sitting down for dinner. It always seemed to, like, right when you're about to take the first bite of the hot steak, that's when always you get a phone call with an issue.
Yeah, so we learned that we would rather make less and hire out, right? So then now we have territory managers in each area that we operate in, and that person is the one who really manages their own territory on a day-to-day basis. So they're the point of contact for all of our cleaners, any maintenance, the guests. And we actually, within the last 4 or 5 months, have hired a couple of VAs who are our customer service. Okay. And they now do all of our messaging across the board, which has taken a lot of messaging and all of that away from our territory manager. So now she can focus on like client interactions, client concierge list. So,
and yeah, what our client gets is like full service, hands off. They do not have to worry about messaging, getting supplies there. Essentially, it can be as hands off as possible for them. They get a monthly statement just like you would in a long-term property management company. Every single month, it's going to show a breakdown of the bookings, their portion, our portion, any cleaning and maintenance that they were charged back. So yeah, essentially they just get a report at the end of every single month. They don't have to deal with any of the issues. We take care of that. Obviously, if there's anything major, like, issues with the property, we're reaching out to them for that. But we usually just have a small monetary amount that everyone agrees with us, that we can just make those decisions so we're not bugging them.
Mhm.
Because, there's 3 or 4 check-ins, usually 3 check-ins a week in the summertime. They don't want to be bothered with that and the messages. And, if they're hiring us to do it, they want it hands off. So it can be a hands off passive investment for people. It's just not if you want to run it yourself.
Do you have clients that need to be kind of in understanding the process? Do they have like meetings with you, or do you just give them reports about, here's how your property did? We had this tenant or this person, he wasn't all that great. We figured it out. We cleaned this. How does that all work? It's interesting because every client's different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point. So we originally, when we started, took on anything and everyone. And now we've pivoted to working with mainly investors that really all we want them caring about is, are they making a return? Obviously, the property and everything needs to be taken care of. That's a no-brainer. But we've had a lot of clients in the past that were extremely hands-on, and we found that was actually the disservice was going to the guests themselves, because not only would we be dealing with any guest issues, but now we'd have to deal with a client that also is freaking out. And now we're putting out 2 fires versus 1. And, times that over 5 or 6 issues happening at the same time, it created chaos. So, and to be honest, it handcuffed us to do a lot, right? Pricing is a big aspect, especially now in performing really well. And I found that in the past, people weren't necessarily in agreement with data, which I don't understand why. And they would put handcuffs on that, and it really hurt their listing. So now we basically are upfront being like, look, this is what we do, this is how we're going to run it, and this is what we project it to get to. If you're happy with that, let's roll. If you're not, then no worries, because we know what we do works, not to sound cocky or, or too
great.
confident.
Yeah. You're an expert in this area.
And there's seasons, right? It ebbs and flows, right? Just because it might be April, it's slow now, but come July, like there's money coming in. So we had to get away with we had to just, we're upfront with our clients in the beginning, saying that slow season's slow and high season's high. And our job is to get you to that number over the 365 and surpass that number, and then have growth year over year. And that includes with us going in and looking at what things can we add, what things can we improve on to the property to increase the booking. So we're looking for that type of client that is, long-term mindset, future growth, and that sees that this isn't going to be built in a day. You're not going to be starting off in April making 12 grand that month. Sometimes you can, but it doesn't always happen. And that's just kind of the way that that's kind of those are the clients that we're going after now, more so than just the more hands-on.
And then telling them too that like the more money they make, the more money we make, right? So it's in our best interest to get them to make the most amount that they can, because then we earn a profit as well.
Yeah, it's like a success fee. And to your point, like even like a seller or like a client, 80-20 rule, right? If 80% of the clients are giving you 20% of the results, you like to go for those more affluent, more abundance mindset thinkers as well. I think it was a great book, Marketing the Affluent, but it's really talking a lot about those people are going to bring more of your business, and they're going to give you less challenges, right? They're going to trust you and be more hands off. So do you help them build a pipeline? How does that work when the slow season comes up? Do you help kind of prospect for a pipeline? It seems like also your territory managers, like your operations director, and then you have your VA kind of handling that. How does that all work?
So to answer the slow season question, it's a different beast. That comes down to pricing strategy. So we have certain discounts, and we price out far enough out, knowing what the average lead time is. And for those listeners that don't know what lead time is basically the average time it takes for someone to book that specific time of year. So if the lead time is 60 days for July, like you're pacing well if you're booked out 60 days in advance. If there's a week before and you're not booked up, then you're pacing well behind. And then if you're booked up way too early, then you're pacing too fast. So you want to find that sweet spot where you're profit maximizing, but also not leaving, too much money on the table either, and just filling the calendars. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was this
No,
question?
I sometimes
Slow
skip
season.
questions, so it's all good.
No. I was like, I'm back now. So yeah, for the slow season aspect, we put on extended stay discounts and try to get people that are coming in from the area for longer term stays, week, 2 weeks. We get a lot of workers that come down and stay for the months, and because we have, a book of we have over 60 properties now, that we've hosted a lot of people that are actually return guests. So there are a lot of people that are working here down in the canals or, the hospitals that just come to us to see what properties we have available. So that's kind of a nice thing for our clients, is that, we're not going to guarantee it, but there is a good chance that the property they stayed at last year is booked, and our other client might have one in that same neighborhood where we can put them in, and it's a similar property, similar amenities, and it works out.
And this is probably, I would say, where clients misunderstand or don't understand how the pricing and slow and high season work, when we're saying, like, because they're expecting, oh, we're going to make $100,000 profit, but then they're barely covering in, say, January, which is historically one of the worst months, right? So trying to say, hey, like, you also made a $30,000 profit in July.
Right.
And it's not the same as long-term rent, where you're used to getting the same month over month. And we find that they forget that they just made a killing from June through to October. And now in, say, January, February, and March, they're either just covering or only making a couple $100. And is trying to reiterate what our strategy is and why it's at this point. We're trying to lower your overhead, which is your supplies, your cleaning, all of that's maintenance, all of that, and get at least to covering or better. And then just trying to talk them through all that.
But know that even if it doesn't cover in the winter months, the slow months outweigh bad. And if you look at a year over year 365 calendar, you're averaging, in the positives, and that's the whole point.
That's the whole point. Okay. It makes sense, because I remember I was speaking with someone about Costa Rica stuff, and he said, well, I know you don't do that area, but he said, look at bookings, or like look at another source to see, how do you predict the high season, I guess, right? To figure out. So I guess you've been doing it so long now that you can predict, depending on the area, the high seasons, you have the data, that kind of thing. Let's say an investor has a property now, it's not making a lot of sense for them. Cash flow wise, tenants are leaving. Should they consider this, or should they consider maybe looking with you from the start at a different option of property, or should they look at this property that they have and see if it makes sense for short-term rental? What do you think?
It's always good to look. I mean, the number one thing I would look at is A, is it allowed? Is the regulations there? And then B, start doing your research, right? You can use AirDNA is a great resource. You just have to dive a lot deeper to see which data is real and which one is overinflated. I could go down so deep in AirDNA and how to analyze a property and find good versus bad data.
That's what you guys do, though. That's what you guys do.
We do that, yeah. So it's quite simple to actually filter out, what's legit and what's not. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're doing that. And if those numbers are feasible, once you've spent, and really it only takes a few hours to go through and look at all the comparables and see, which ones probably actually did 80 or to 100,000, and which ones that said, or 150 or 200 had multiple listings. And obviously it's going to inflate that if there's, multiple listings on one property. So I think it's just doing that research up front. And if it's feasible, and there's a lot of meat on the bone, then I would go for it.
And also there's some like logic that comes into it too. Like if this person has had this property for a while, then they know the area. Is this something that someone's going to come to as a vacation? Mm-hmm. Is this a place where people are going to come to for work? Like, who is your avatar? We talk about that quite a bit before we actually get into a property. We kind of create what we would call a guest avatar. So for us, because a lot of our properties are in St. Catharines and Niagara-on-the-Lake, that's a strong tourism area. You're always going to have people coming down to go to Niagara-on-the-Lake, the wineries, all of that. So our guest avatar is vacationers, families, groups, because the homes are a little bigger, sleeping 8 to 12. So I think the person has to come up with who is their avatar, and is this where they're going to go? So if your property is in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing around and nothing historically saying that this is a strong tourism area, you're not going to have like a vacation rental avatar, people coming down for fun. But are you in like an industrious area where people are consistently there for work, either short-term or long-term? That might work too.
That's interesting. Yeah, I remember when we had a guest once, he came from the States and he stayed for about 2 months and he paid really well. And I
Nice.
was like, what a great, I think we just got lucky with that one. It was really
Yeah.
interesting, right?
It's nice when the company pays, right? Because then they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you break that down then? Does it depend on percent to the type of property? Like how does it all break down with the investment for your company? 'Cause it seems like you guys do a lot of work to help the investor get it all set up for short-term rental, to manage it, have your operations onboarding. How does it all work? Like if you give an example or just maybe some simple examples or anything that we can share.
Yeah, so when we run that analysis, we're also qualifying it as well, right? I mean, we kind of need to feel out, are they, what's the property like? Is it, a complete tear down that they're just looking to throw a couch in, or is it a really nice property in a great area that we know is going to has the potential to do really well? And then from there, are they willing to invest to get it up to, our standards? I think that's the number one thing. And then from there, we do an analysis with them. We send them a chart that basically says, fill in all your costs right now, your mortgage, your hydro, all your historical numbers. And then it actually has a formula in there that will calculate with the income, like a good, better, and best if they want to do that, with our management fee in. And it'll basically has a form at the bottom, whether they're going to be in the positives or the negatives on average year over year. And from there, if it's in the negatives, we probably will just straight up tell them, like, it might make sense for you to either run this yourselves, because that 20%, that's the fine line, or hey, if you do this, this, and this, we can get you to a higher revenue based on all of this data and all of these comparables. If you're willing to do that, it can be a successful venture. So we do all that research up front before we take the property on, because the last thing we want, again, word of mouth is so important to us. The last thing we want is to get into a relationship with someone where, they're not willing to do what needs to be done, but we just said, yeah, it should be fine. And then 6 months later, we're in a battle, and it's, it doesn't end up well for them, and we don't want to leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth. So we're a lot more upfront in the beginning with that regards. That's how we qualify.
That's right. It makes sense. So you qualify the property as well as the client. Are they willing to invest? How much do they usually need upfront to put in? I know it depends on the property, but and I see the properties that you guys work with are absolutely really luxurious and beautiful. What does that roughly look like? Do you just go and get an idea based on the designer or on your assessment? How does that work?
Yeah, you can go as crazy with your budget to as frugal as possible, but still make it work. I mean, I will say the luxury rentals are doing extremely well right now. And with that, the big thing in Niagara region is the outdoor space. Like, everyone can have a beautiful inside. I mean, obviously you can't cheap out on the mattresses, couches. People think where people are spending the most time.
High touch areas.
Yeah, the high touch areas. And the outside is the number one selling feature. So do you have a really nice outdoor seating area, ideally covered for rain or shine, that can sleep or sit, as the entire group? Do you have things like hot tubs, saunas, a pool? Are you on the water? Like, think experience, right? You need to create that experience, and getting back to, capturing that person's attention. That photo needs to essentially, the second you pass it, we have a lot of our photos, we call them the hero photos, are usually pictures of the outside, either with the hot tub, the string lights, the fire table, with the view in the background. But the second someone sees it, they're already sitting in that seat, sipping a glass of wine or having a coffee in the morning with that view, right? And that's the whole point that you need to create. So, long story to answer your question, usually when you're doing that with like a 4 to 5 bedroom, furniture and the outside, assuming you're doing all those amenities, you're looking at like 80,000+, right?
And a lot of the bylaws are about 3-bedroom. I'd say for a 3-bedroom, you're kind of closer to I would say between 50 to 70.
You can do it. You can definitely, that's like mid to high range, right? Yeah. That's if you're like not cheaping out on anything. There are things where you can spend a lot less, but still it appears nice, right? Yeah. It doesn't look cheap.
Like, we wouldn't say go spend, yeah, like don't spend like $4,000 on a dining room table. That seems, or
like
stupid.
Gold plates or something. Like, you can just plates and
exactly.
Yeah, as long as, to an extent, like, you still want decent cutlery, because a lot of people do like to cook. But yeah, you don't need to buy a $50 pizza cutter. Let's put it that way.
We love Amazon. Like, for the little things like pizza cutter, wine opener, like the dollar store or Walmart, just fine for those little items.
Right.
We do love IKEA for decor like items.
Mhm.
But the things where people are going to be sitting on, laying on, they need to be good and not peg-legged, just because those break.
Yeah, like not screwed on. Uncle John didn't screw it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if they are, it has to be a higher there
Exactly.
right? Like there are some good ones from like Wayfair that are a bit more expensive that are a lot more durable than the really cheap ones.
That sort of reminds me like when fashion influencers talk about, how you have an outfit, but then you have the, the watch and the purse and all that, really like the expensive ones. And then you have some other things that aren't as expensive. It's kind of like anchoring, like you said, those high touch areas, mattress, couch. When you get there, you sit down and feel so relaxed and you
Right.
create an experience. That's really
But
cool.
there's little decor items that you can get at Walmart and IKEA that are very cost effective. Fake plants we love.
Yeah.
Just things like you have to walk in and it feels like someone's living there. Like there has to be pictures on the wall, like little trinkets and stuff that are around, and the decor has to all kind of tie in together. It can't just be like a TV, a couch, and like a little coffee table and you're done. No, there needs to be like a rug. There needs to be little fake plants around, a print on the wall. It has to really flow.
Okay, like cohesiveness, essentially. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the hero photos. So it seems like there's definitely a really good formula that you have for that. And we'll make sure that we have your contact information. Tell us a little bit about your other company too that you just launched. Other than Opti, I think it was a luxury travel specialist or luxury.
Oh, that's just like a personal thing. So we love to travel. We've done that a lot now since we left the corporate job. So yeah, we're big on traveling with like points and miles. So the big one in Canada here is Aeroplan. So essentially, we like to fly in business and first class with
Yes, I love that.
expensive champagne for very little amount for a few $100 in taxes and some points. So
No business there though, just all hobby.
That's great. It's great marketing. I look at it, I'm like, man, I gotta get some of that food. I gotta lay down on. I don't need those neck straps. I can just lay down on that. Easy.
You really do. And it's so achievable for Canadians and even more achievable for investors. Like you're spending money on either flips or renovations or furnishing for short-term rentals. Like you might as well put that on a brand new credit card that's going to get you first class flights.
Basically, your average reno that you're going to do on even a basement unit, you get one or two good cards with the sign-up bonus and the spend you're going to put on it. That's probably close to enough to fly a round trip for two in business class, which will retail around $10,000 to $15,000 a person. So if you're going to spend 50 to 60K plus on a renovation, you might as well get a 10 to 20,000 or $10 to $30,000 flight on top of the tax write-off. So
okay,
that's
so
kind of how we look at it.
Understand it properly. Then for renovations, use it on a credit card. And then for every renovation that you do you do different credit cards or do you just kind of keep using that credit card? And then what kind of cards do you figure are the best? Because I've used Aeroplan, for example, and they were like, a chocolate bar was 50,000 points. So
well, then, yeah, no, don't do that. We like to target Amex cards. So I think right now the Platinum is really good. The Amex Business Platinum is one we really love as well. And the Business Gold is good. Another one that we love for Amex is the Cobalt because you earn 5 times at grocery stores and you can do like a little hack, like say if you're getting a ton of renovations, a ton of things from like Home Depot, you can actually go buy gift cards from the grocery store and using that card, you'll earn 5 times the points on that gift card amount. So if you're going to spend $1,000 at Home Depot, you buy $1,000 gift card, you get 5,000 points and then you just use the gift card at Home Depot. That's like a different way to level up your points. And we refer back and forth because you get referral points, and that is huge because they can be like 20,000 points at a time. And typically we time new credit card applications with renovations and furnishings
because they all come with like a pretty large sign-up bonus.
Yeah.
So the Aeroplan branded credit cards are really good, but not when you're using it on merchandise. So you mentioned the chocolate bar. When you're using it on to buy like vacuums and stuff, it's a horrible redemption. And again, like it's frustrating because if you don't know how to properly redeem it, like there's a lot of people sitting there with a lot of points thinking, hey, I can only get this, chocolate bar. I can only get this new microwave that's worth $100 for this 100,000 Aeroplan points. What they don't realize is that 100,000 points could get them, one way at least business class flight worth $10,000. right? They just didn't know that. And that's kind of the, that's there's really good resources out there. Prince of Travel, we know Ricky, he runs that blog. They have a lot of stuff for beginners. I highly recommend going to check that out. They've got some amazing content all the way from newbie stuff to really high advanced stuff.
And they also do conferences, and
Yes.
if you go, you will see us as speakers when they have their new one next April.
That's really cool. So I was going to ask if you have a guide, because I think it'd be great for people to have a guide on how to use these credit cards. You know, if you're going to end up buying Christmas gifts or gifts in general, how do you make the most of it to get maximum benefit? And how does it
Yeah.
down for the trip, right? Like, how do you plan your trips? Do you plan your vacations around that? Do you just say, okay, we're going to get these many points, we're going to go on this trip, we'd like to go here? How does that all work?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do, but we also have formulated a business where we don't have to be in Canada in order for it to continue to run, which is great. But also we've set it up in such a way that we're continually earning points month over month without us having to do anything or make any spend. And basically how we do that is we pay with Travelux, the property management company, we pay cleaners up front, and then we charge it back to the clients monthly. So typically the cleaners will charge the credit card every month. And then once we get the money back from the clients, we just pay off the credit card. So it's just earning Aeroplan points every single month. And in the summer, it's upwards of 40,000 points a month.
Wow, it's almost like you used your business to create a machine to like
Yeah.
create more points. That's amazing. That's like great leverage, right?
Yeah.
So
And real estate investors and developers, they do the same thing. A lot of them that are savvy with the points, right? That have hundreds of thousands of dollars in renovations. Anytime that they have to get materials, they're putting it on a decent credit card, not a small cashback one, or one that barely earns any points.
And it really it depends on what kind of travel people want to do, right? Like, we are looking to fly international, first class and business class. Someone who's looking to fly to Florida might not be as aggressive as us, because then maybe a cashback
Or a fixed reward
card would make more sense. And it just depends on what kind of travel you're into.
right, it seems like the longer trips you need sort of, you're getting more of an experience, right? You're going.
Yes.
Better value for
Better
sure.
value.
So those trips, like, let's say, what was your last trip? What was roughly the cost, and what did you end up paying? Like, if you ended up booking
Ooh.
that, just curious.
What was our last trip?
We spent a month in Southeast Asia between Tokyo and Vietnam.
We did a bunch of flights. So if we wanted, we can just do like the large one there and the large
Yes.
one back. So
Yeah.
we flew half business, half first there for 120,000 Aeroplan points. So we flew business class with, was it Swiss?
No, ANA.
ANA. Sorry, no, not out of North America. We didn't fly ANA. We flew to Geneva, and then Geneva we flew first. Wasn't that?
That was December.
No, that was December. See, I get my trips mixed up.
That's
So we did. You're right. We flew
a
ANA out of Chicago. That was 100 and what? No, 90,000. I don't even remember.
Let me think. I think it was. That was 100. No, it was about 90,000.
Yeah, it was around 90 to 100,000. I think. Let's just call it
Points
around
one way.
100,000 one way, and then we flew first class back, which was 130. Or sorry, no, that was Alaska miles. That was 75,000, which is now 90,000. So let's just call it, for round trip per person, you're around 200,000 points, one in business, one in first class.
And the taxes, I believe, were about $150 each person each way. So you're spending about $300 total each way, and these flights cost like $15,000. And that flight was like 14 hours, right? So we're sleeping. We watched the Super Bowl, because when we left, the Super Bowl was on, and we were able to watch the Super Bowl in the air with unlimited drinks. You have like a 3 or 4 course meal, dining on demand. Yeah, it is an experience.
Yeah.
And we've done a 14-hour flight in economy, and that will never happen again.
Yeah, there's nothing more motivating than sitting, in front of you and someone's putting their seat all the way back and you're like, I'll never do this again. Right?
Yeah,
Yes, that's what
yeah.
happened.
It's even like a 4 or 5 hour flight in economy hurts now. We'll still do it, but
I don't want to.
it's painful.
Oh, for sure. So what has real estate done for you guys as far as allowing you to live, geographical freedom, financial freedom? What has that done for you think?
It's been everything for us. When we first started dating in 2015, we talked about how much we loved to travel. We spent some time in Southeast Asia, and And we just kept saying there has to be something else we can do so that we can travel more than 3 to 4 weeks a year. Like that wasn't cutting it for us. And I think it's more of like a millennial mindset where it's like we want to be happy. We don't want to just like work for the sake of working, and we want to actually like what we do. So we didn't know it was going to be real estate. We talked about how we were going to probably be entrepreneurs of some kind. We just didn't know what. So when Spencer kind of got the opportunity to shadow a friend and it worked out, I think the light bulb went off when we were like, we can do this and we can learn to be experts in this, and we can build this to a point where we can create systems where other people can do a lot of the day to day, and we can work. We don't need to work on an Eastern Standard Time. Like we can work 6 hours one day, 2 hours another. We don't need to work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time anymore. And that's what we've created.
It seems like you got out of that corporate bubble and that corporate way of thinking. Like, okay, Friday, 5 o'clock, I'm, gonna get those beers, right? Like, you completely broke out of that, just creating time, geographical and time freedom, right? You could be in different time zones. You can work anytime. You have someone else doing the work as well for you. You have systems creating all that. So that's pretty awesome. It's definitely a full-time thing. I think a lot of people underestimate how much work it is to create this. And yeah, and like you said, entrepreneurship, right? Like it seems like you've had it in your blood for a while then, right? Like just create something like this. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Spencer for sure is one of those like natural entrepreneurs. I think for me, I just don't like rules. To be honest with you, I don't like that. I was told to sit in front of a computer from 9 to 5, and I'm like, what if I'm not productive? Like it makes no sense. I'm just sitting at a screen. So now if I'm not productive, I go do something that recharges the battery and I can come back. And if I feel like working at 8 o'clock at night, I do. If I don't feel like working until 1 o'clock, I don't. Right. I like that ability to choose.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because I remember Dan Sullivan was saying something about like school is almost like, and nothing against school, but it's almost like having someone sitting for 8 hours doing administrative work. And it's like, of course they're going to get a little bit bored, right? So it doesn't mean that they're just not engaged. So
right.
Makes a lot of sense. So where can people find you, and what are you guys offering now? If there's anything that people need to know, investors, real estate investors, a message for them, how you help them. Seems like you solve a lot of problems out there, but how can you help some people out there?
Yeah, I mean, they can follow Instagram. We're big on that. Spencer and Ashley is our handle. We just launched a brand new website, spencerandashley.com. So you can find that. And then our new service that we just launched is optbnb.ca. That is for like listing optimization. So if they're just looking to, get a pulse on their listing, what can be done better, anything that can help improve them, help them rank higher, convert better. That's something that we want to help a lot of hosts with, because we feel like there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of missed opportunity out there. So
it's awesome. And how can people use, or what can people do, use short-term rentals to maybe pivot, or what advice would you give to investors right now to be successful in this market right now, you think?
I would say, like, if you're looking to get into it, make sure they're definitely doing the research up front before they dive in and spend all that money. That's definitely number one.
And making sure that you're creating an experience, like making sure you have a theme in mind, and just like little things like, would you go and stay at your property, and what would draw you there? We always tell people once it's done, like spend a couple nights there, cook, make sure you have everything that you would need, because people love that ease. They're on vacation, right? So what can you offer them to make their stay amazing?
Yep. And a third one I would say is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, mimic success. There's a lot of already existing high performing properties on there. See what they're doing, see what they're offering, see how they're, see what their page is saying, where they're located. You don't have to, like I said, reinvent the wheel. Just if you can copy that success and maybe even add a few things that they don't have, there's a good chance that you're going to do the same, if not better. So
that's awesome. I love it. Yeah. Success leaves clues, right? I mean, like, and I would personally hire you guys next time, because I think you take a lot of those and you've created the systems and you've done it many, many times. So, well, we really appreciate you being on. I'm sure we'll have you on again. It's been a great conversation. So,
we appreciate it, Sam. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Welcome. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.
You too.
See you.